I was alone a lot as a kid. Okay. I didn't get a lot of that social interaction. I felt anxious a lot, right? I found alcohol. Alcohol made me feel like I fit in. It filled that need of nurture, right? Feeling a part of the herd. So by filling that need of nurture through alcohol, my body says in that ventral tegmental area, hey, alcohol equals primal need. It's important, very important. You will die for this, right? So
yeah.
Essentially, with most substances, that's what's really going on. It's not, I didn't have an alcohol problem, I had alcohol solution, right? The problem was I couldn't figure out what was the maladaptation, how to work on that, and ultimately not need alcohol to give me that missing need.
We're here. Hello, my friend, and welcome to another episode of I Love Being Sober, sponsored by Camelback Recovery, Arizona's preferred sober living option to help AA newcomers stay sober during their first year in the program. If that's you or someone you know, then you're in the right place, because my name's Tim Westbrook, and I'm the CEO and founder of Camelback Recovery here in the always sunny and always sober Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have helped thousands of people to stop their suffering and continue on their path to recovery. Let's get clear on one thing. We believe that a relapse or a slip is not a part of recovery. And that's exactly why this podcast is dedicated to you or any loved one you know in their first year of striving to live a clean and sober life. The purpose of this podcast is to come clean with all the misinformation that's out there about recovery, addiction treatment, mental illness, and the strategies to stay sober in general. So if you believe you're in the right place, or if you know someone who's struggling with addiction, it's my privilege to share this podcast with you. Now, I have no idea if you and I have ever met, but what I do know is that AA saved my life. And I also know that to find long-term recovery and live happy, joyous, and free, it's not just about stopping your drinking, drugging, gambling, sexual indiscretions, or any other addiction you may have struggled with or suffered from. Because at Camelback Recovery, we believe that sobriety can and should be fun. And look, any recovery process is not easy. It is challenging. It can sometimes be annoying. And for the most of us, it is often difficult to stay on the path. But here's the good news. The self-awareness you gain from listening to this podcast, especially if you are in your first year of recovery, will help you make better choices, which will ultimately lead you to living a kick-ass sober life. Visit camelbackrecovery.com to learn more about our treatment strategies for alcoholism, drug addiction, or mental illness. And we even offer recovery coaching so that you can enjoy the freedom and happiness you've always searched for. Today, I'm going to have a conversation with Dr. Robbie Westerman. Dr. Robbie was not a doctor before he got clean and sober. He was just Robbie, the hopeless drug addict and alcoholic. We're going to talk about his experience, strength, and hope, amongst a few other things. And, well, first, let me just tell you a little bit about Dr. Robbie and what his life looks like today. He's a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner who has been working in recovery for over 9 years. He has worked at the world-renowned Meadows for the last 9 years, providing the most advanced treatments in trauma and addiction medicine. Dr. Robbie's own development, including social and neurobiological models, have stood out amongst his peers, and he is a sought-after consultant by many agencies. He uses his urge theory combined with the developmental trauma to explain complicated disorders and target treatment. Dr. Robbie, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here.
Thanks, Tim. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's really, really good to see you. And so I guess we can dig into it. Let's dig into your story. Let's start with your upbringing. Where are you from? Did you grow up homeless? Did you grow up in a broken home? What was it like for you growing up?
All right. So I'll kind of get into it. Yeah. So it's very, looking back at it now, it's very easy to recognize that there was a lot of dysfunction in my house. When we're going through it, though, obviously it's not dysfunction at all, right? It's the only normal we know, right? So it's kind of it's comfortable hell for many of us. So I had no idea some of the things that were going on in my household were, not very conducive to building formative relationships, building good habits, adaptive habits, and kind of learning how to be independent. My father was an alcoholic, and mother was very codependent, trying to, always help dad, save dad. Father was also bipolar, so a lot of anger, a lot of screaming and yelling when I was a kid, which I didn't think was abnormal, but like I didn't want to be around it. So, I spent a lot of time just kind of hanging out in my room and just isolating essentially. So I think looking back at it now, I never really got to form those really good, strong bonds with other kids, with my parents. Those sort of things were kind of not available to me during that time.
Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in North Phoenix. I lived most of my life as a child in the North Phoenix Deer Valley area.
Okay. Okay. Now, did your parents stay together or did they get divorced?
My parents stayed together until I was about, I think, 17 years old. Yeah, they ended up splitting up about 17 years old.
When did you start experimenting with drugs and alcohol?
So it's very interesting because I remember so candidly, the first time I used alcohol, and just to kind of rewind and give a little depth and weight to this experience I'm going to tell you about. I had a lot of anxiety in school when I was young. Now I know, it's because, I didn't form relationships. I didn't learn that. So I
Okay.
felt out of place. I felt like, hey, everyone else got this handbook. Where's my handbook? Why is everyone else seems a part of, I seem apart from, everyone else seems like a part of the herd or communicating. Inside, I was like, it seems like everyone likes me, but
Uh,
deeper down, I'm like, dude, what's wrong with me? What's going on here? And I remember just shame, and it was for no reason. It was unidentifiable. I would just be sitting in the classroom and I'd be like, I don't want anyone to look at me. I don't know why. I just don't want people to look at me. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be
mhm.
found out. Right. And that all changed, when I took that first drink of alcohol, and I remember it. I
Okay.
think I was 13 years old, 14
Okay.
years old.
Sounds about
And
right.
yeah, we were out in the middle of the
Yeah.
street, and me, I was so shy. And I
Uh-huh.
remember drinking alcohol, and I felt like, oh my God, this is what I've been missing. This innate ability to connect to others, right? This feeling of fitting in, this feeling of feeling good in my own skin, the feeling of feeling handsome, the feeling of feeling, able to talk, right? Alcohol gave me all that stuff, and it felt so good to finally feel at home. I
Mhm.
felt at home. I felt like I finally belonged. I was a part of instead of apart from, so it was
Yeah.
like me kind of finding that herd, me saying, you know what, this is it. This is what I was missing.
Okay, so you're about 13 when you have your first drink, and was that it? Did you just experiment throughout? When did it start progressing? When did it become a problem? When did you experiment with drugs and other
Yeah.
things?
So of course I knew that I couldn't drink alcohol and, go to school every day, especially being in
Yeah,
like seventh grade. That was pretty obvious
right.
to me. It started out as just, like, you know what, I was very contained, like most at first. I was able to drink on the weekends, maybe drink during the middle of the week, those sorts of things. And then, stuff really, really, really went downhill quickly when I discovered opioids. That's when stuff moved very quickly for me. I ended up getting a girl pregnant,
Okay. Wait, now
and
how old were you when you discovered
17,
opiates? You were
17.
17. Okay, and how? What happened?
So
How did you discover it?
interesting. So I was actually trying to get ecstasy with my girlfriend,
Uh-huh.
and I went to pick it up, and they didn't have any. And he's like, I got this heroin, and I was like, I was young, I didn't know anything about it, and I was like, all right, why not? I remember bringing it home, and my girlfriend's like, what the hell? Or she's like, we're not doing
Yeah.
that, and I'm like, all right, and I just remember doing it. And I felt like just like warm blood, just like hugging my insides. It felt so good, it felt so salient. It felt like everything alcohol gave me, but I was able to function too. So it was
Did she do it too, or did you do it on your own?
she did it. She ended up doing it too. Yes,
Okay, okay. And you
and
convinced her.
Yeah, I did convince her, and and unfortunately, she has still not sought out any help. This is
Oh,
12 years, 10 years later.
wow, wow.
Um,
Okay, so and then what happened after that first time you did it?
so the first time I did it, I knew that I shouldn't do it again because it felt too good. I was like
Yeah.
blasted into, cloud nine, and I slowly obsessed over it. I slowly wanted that feeling again. I yearned for that love and attention and inclusion that opioids brought me, just like alcohol.
Mhm.
And no one was going to stop me, And I remember going to my first treatment at 17 years old. You know,
So that quickly.
First treatment was at 17 years old. Yes.
So your first time you tried opiates, 17, how long, like, how does it happen that quickly?
Well, you start using intravenously, and
Just
it
like that.
it was very, very. It was a quick downslope, quick downslope for me, and yeah, it was. Then it was combining, and it was out of control, and just starting at treatment so young, it was, and I wasn't ready. That was the thing. So I feel like I would go to these, treatments, not ready, and I was always doing it for somebody else. I was always, trying to be able to have a place to stay. I wanted to stay at my parents' house, and
How,
I
and how did you end up at treatment your first time?
so the first time I ended up in treatment, I started mixing heroin with methamphetamine, and
Mhm.
injecting it and those sorts of things. And I want to say that I drove myself. I had a truck, and I was working
So
at
you
UPS.
said, so did you just say, I need to go to treatment?
Yes, because
So there wasn't an intervention or anything. You just decided you needed to go to treatment.
well, my current girlfriend got pregnant with my daughter, Kira. So
Okay.
yeah, so that was kind of like, I was like, hey, I need a man up, like I need to do the dad thing, do the right thing. And so that was kind of a primary motivator at first, which, is sometimes good to get people into treatment, but, it's not going to keep you sober.
Right, right. And so how many times did you go in and out of treatment?
Oh, geez. I think when all's said and done, I think it was around 17 treatment centers. Um,
Wow. Okay. Okay. So this
yeah.
is for the man or woman who's been to treatment multiple times. What was your lowest bottom? I mean, you're in and out of treatment 17 times. What did your life look like? What did your how did you end up in and out of treatment so many times? What did your parents say?
So my family was, pretty much broken up at that point. My mom and dad had separated. So my, brothers and sister were, in the midst of their addictions too. It was really an ugly situation. But, the lowest point of my life was when I think I was 21. CPS ended up getting involved, and, there was nothing more than I loved than my daughter. She lived with me since she was born, my oldest. And they took her from me. They put her in foster care. It was I can't even explain. I was wailing, in the bed for like days,
Wow.
wailing, like screaming, because like that's like an extension of me, And I know it's selfish that I was using, but I know addicts, they love their children, most of the time. It's not like we don't love our children. It
Yeah.
hurts, it's painful. It's so much pain, but that was definitely, the lowest point in my life is when my daughter called me on the phone, and she's like, "Daddy, Daddy, please come get me. Please come get me. Please get
Oh,
me out of here." And I just remember wailing on the phone, and I just went in my room, and it was awful. I remember I've never cried so loud in my life, just laying there thinking, my child's in a respite home, like
wow.
what the hell, man? Like, is it that important? Is it that important?
How old was she at that time?
She was 4.
Okay. And so when what happened when you actually when did you finally get to, what happened? What was the final when it actually worked?
When it kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. Nope, no
Yeah.
pun there. But
Okay.
so yeah, I ended up at the end of my runs, I guess. I think I was 23.
Mhm.
And I remember sitting there, I had some heroin and needle, I had some methamphetamine, I was injecting bath salts, Wellbutrin, I mean, you name it. If I could put it into a needle, I was injecting it. And there was, bed bugs running around where I was. And, I was living in like 40, I was living in squalor pretty much. And I don't know, something was like flush the dope and call and go now. And I just got fired of my job. I don't know how I maintained it, but I worked at UPS for 7 years. And I think it's because it's warehouse work. They ain't really checking up on you too much. Kind of, just do your thing, show up,
Yeah.
throw some packages around and get out. But, I had lost that job I have for 7 years, which was a lot of, my money and identity. And it was just me and the needle, man. It was just me and the needle. That's it. It was me, the needle.
How did you lose your UPS job?
So I was already on, and some people are probably watching this, worked with me there, my manager too. Love you guys. But they gave me so many damn shots, Tim. I'm telling you, they knew. And my managers were so good to me there, and they came up to me and they told me before, hey man, you don't look good. Okay. What the hell's going on? And I would tell them, man, like I'm using, dude, I don't know. And they would send me to treatment and, I'd get paid and I'd come back and I'd screw up and then they'd help me again. And then there got to a point when, my manager, I came in eyes bigger or your pupils bigger than my whole eyeball. And he's like, Robbie, this is it, man. This is it. Go get a drug test. You're going down with HR to get a drug test. And that was it, man. That was it.
Wow. So they enabled you for quite some time, for many, many years. And then you got fired, and then you ended up in treatment for the last time. Did you know it was going to be the last time?
No,
there's lots of other people that go to treatment multiple times. It's like, did you know it was the last? Because you've been sober for what's your sobriety date?
Almost 9 years, or over 9 years, almost 10 years.
Okay.
51513.
Okay. So did you know it was going to be your last attempt? Did you know that you were like, okay, this is it. This is the time. Or how many times did you say that?
And, the thing about it and this is why I always believe, even if somebody's not ready, like go to treatment, because the stuff I had learned over the years in treatment and, counselors telling me stuff and pounding stuff into my head, like it ruined my using out there for a long time, like it really made me think out there. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I use this analogy with my clients a lot. I can read all about swinging a golf club. I can know every vector, every angle, how hard to swing, elbow placement, hand placement. Does that mean I can go out there and, hit birdie? No, it doesn't. Okay. It's practical application. Okay. You could know the book in and out. You can know everything there is to know about a subject. The fact of the matter is I knew everything there was to know. I knew the 164, all that stuff by heart, but I couldn't keep a needle out of my arm. And the issue was there was no practical application. There was no practical application. So, I had all the tools, I learned all the tools. It was just, putting them into place, man, getting uncomfortable.
Right. Okay. So the last time you were at treatment, and then what was it like? And I guess, what was it like for your very first year? What did you do? So you went to treatment, then what did you do after treatment? What was your first year like?
So my first year consisted of being humbled. Okay. Because I didn't have much, but I got a job after I did 90 days as a kind of, I guess you would call it a BHT or one of those positions where I was able to work alongside people in recovery, which was super helpful because not only was I doing my own program, but I got to be very involved with other people, which was amazing. And that's really where I found a passion for this. But I just stayed super plugged in. Like I would run into people everywhere that I went that were in the program. And I had so much fun in sobriety, like just doing trivial things, just going to walk around at the mall, stuff that, doesn't seem super exciting, but when you're with a group of people that, you've gone through something together, going to conventions, going to meetings to watch buddies get chips, watching people get married, like watching, people just being around a bunch of people that want to succeed. That's why they're there. That's why we're all there. We're not there for any reason but to get better. And I felt like they just like got grabbed up, and they're like, hey, you're coming along. So it was a great feeling.
And how did so I guess how much do you think finding your tribe had to do with you being able to stay sober?
100%. I think, I truly believe that having the fellowship and the people around you, I mean, connecting with people is the biggest way to stay sober, because you need someone to bounce ideas off, and you want someone that's not going to co-sign your BS, right? I mean, we're addicts, we're manipulators. I can get anyone to co-sign my idea, my great idea, but I come and try to run it by Tim, or run it by, Ron, or run it by, they're gonna be like, no, like, this isn't a good idea, man. And it's really good to have those safeguards, the first year, and then also just when you're down, your phone will not stop ringing, and there's like constantly people like, texting you, hey man, how are you? Or haven't seen you at this meeting. So it was like, it was accountability, and it was love, and, it was teaching, and it was, getting second opinions. I got all those things from my group.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate. When I first got clean and sober, I remember I just, there were a bunch of meetings by where I lived, and I met with people that I had similarities to, people that I wanted to be like, people that were doing things that I wanted to do. And that was what it took for me. I mean, seeing people that have what I wanted, and then building relationships with them, and seeing them day after day after day after day, meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, and watching them and watching their actions, and watching how they interacted with other people, and how they talked about their relationships with their wives and their family members and their friends, and their just all of those things helped me out tremendously. And I mean, I see people that show up to meetings late, they're on their phone the entire time, and then they leave early and they don't stay connected to the group. That's really not like Alcoholics Anonymous or NA or whatever 12-step program it is. Even if it's not even a 12-step program, like, you've got to get involved with a fellowship of people that you get to know on a deep level. And then, to your point, ask for suggestions, right? Ask other people. Tim needs to talk to somebody besides Tim. Robbie needs to talk to somebody else besides Robbie. And that's how we're going to come up with the best decision and keep us on the path. And so what made you decide? So I know what made you decide to work in the field. How did you become Dr. Robbie? How'd that happen?
Oh, so
because you were Robbie, the drug addict, alcoholic, guy that worked in the UPS warehouse that showed up high every day and couldn't pass a drug test.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I tried to. So here's how God works when we're just humble and just trying to do the next right thing. I had a job interview it was a shipping place. I don't remember what it was called, but I did the interview and I felt really good. I think it was, I'm not going to say the name, but I'm sure they were going to hire me. They were bringing me back in the back area, and they were asking me a little bit about myself, and I kind of learned now, just kind of my business is my business. But I told them I'm in recovery, and all of a sudden they're like, all right, well, we'll give you a call. When they were sending me in the back to sign paperwork, I was like, well, what paperwork? They're like, oh, we'll call you with it. And I remember leaving, and I was like, I know that they didn't give me the job because I told them that. I know that. And my wife's like, hey, well, I applied at this, this Meadows place, and they told me, I didn't have long enough sober. Why don't you go do that? And I'm like in logistics, like I barely graduated high school, like I can't work at a hospital. And I applied and I got the job, and that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in shipping, but
right.
Deep down, I knew what I wanted to do, but a part of me felt like it's a long road to look up to get there, and it was very it was tough looking up that road. But something I really use that's been very, very beneficial to me is knowing how hard it is to stay high out there every day. It is the most difficult job in the world. I don't care if you're a surgeon, I don't care what you do. Try to score drugs every day with no money. That's that's why I know, you hire people that are in sobriety, like they get stuff done, like you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about it, most of the time.
Yeah.
And I did micro tasks of, what's my bag of dope for the day? Okay, I got to go take the college entrance test. That's my bag of dope. What's my bag of dope for the day? And I would have that mindset every day. What will be my drug today? And I took that attitude. And if I can get my dope every day, I can accomplish, a trivial task like going down to court and, getting my address changed or, getting my enrollment stuff together for school. I just pretended like, like that's what I have to do. If I'm willing to do it for dope, I'm willing to do it for something else. And
Wow.
yeah, that's kind of how I treated, most of the tasks. I still treat stuff like that today. So, that's kind of where I got the drive to do it. And the passion was always there. It was just that I don't know how. And that worked itself out. I'm a big believer in consciousness, mindfulness. A lot of times when we're looking in the future, we're in, tons of anxiety, we're in fear, right? We're just paralyzed with everything we need to do. When we're in the past, we're in guilt, we're in shame, we're in inadequacy and fear again. And the trick I have found is if you just stay in the here and now, you get set up for stuff. I don't know how it works. Don't ask me. But I look back at stuff that I did 5 months ago that have set me up today that I totally didn't do in, anxiety or
Yeah.
fear. I'm
Yeah.
just like moving along, like just, moving along here and now. And then sometimes I'll look back and be like, wow, that was a good idea. I'm glad I got that stupid certificate that I did on a whim 6 months ago for no
Yeah.
reason, and they say they need someone with this certificate. So it's weird how the universe provides you exactly what you need, like when you're kind of in line with universe instead of in, amygdala, right? Or in thought. So
Yeah, and I think it's not the how. The question is not, it's not the how. The question is, okay, this is what I want to do, and then you'll figure out the how. I mean, even as simple as we're going to be doing the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim here in the fall, and I'm telling a few people about it, and they're like, okay, we're just trying to figure out how it's going to work. Some people want to do rim to rim to rim. Some people just want to do south to north. Some people want to do north to south. They're like, we got to figure out exactly, how we're going to get back. I'm like, you don't got to think about that. You just got to say, I'm going to do it. And then we'll figure it out. Like we always figure it out. That's an easier way to think about things, in my experience anyways.
yeah, no task seems, too big when we have that mindset. It's the fear and the past and fear of failure and inadequacy. It prevents so many people from reaching the potential that they have inside. I mean, if I can accomplish, what I've accomplished, which is, nothing close to what I have wanted, where I want to go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's anyway, there's no trick to it. There's no trick, it's just go, there's no trick, it's just don't let thoughts, don't let fears, don't let that stuff stop you, you just go and you'll make a path.
I learned a way to think about the future. Last week, I was at a Genius Network meeting. There's a guy named Dr. Benjamin Hardy wrote a book called Be Your Future Self Now. And the premise is, ask yourself the question, ask yourself 20 years from now, should I go get this certificate? Your future self is going to say, absolutely, go get the certificate. Should whatever the decision is, should I use this dope right now? No, definitely not. And so it's a way to kind of look into the future or make a decisions based upon the future, but stay in the present. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 100%. That is, you're consciously, decision making.
Yeah. And I don't even think I've heard of any books read about your future self and having a relationship with your future self.
I agree. Yeah, that's very interesting, perspective on it. Very interesting.
So when did you decide, okay, I want to become a doctor? Like, what made you decide that?
Oh my God. So
'Cause
I got
that's a big deal. Like, again, UPS drug addict to, barely finished school, barely finished high school, to now I'm going to become a doctor.
so the thing about it is like I found so much passion and love in neurology and people, but there was always a disconnect for me. It's like I was a Suboxone patient for a long time, which helped me, but there was there was a lot of I felt a lot of like bias, and then a lot of it was just there was the patients would be upset at the doctors be worried about patients, and it's like I'm in the middle. How can we bridge this? How can we bridge this? Where can we have some understanding? Where can we have some understanding on some of the stuff that the patient is feeling versus some of the stuff that the physician is seeing, and kind of have like a neutral view, so some compromise, right? And that's where I really just started to, I just went down a rabbit hole, man, for like 8 years, just,
Yeah.
I wanted to learn every neuron, every, chemical pathway, every signal, every, you know, I go work with pharmacy companies, and I love it, man. I love neurology of addiction, and I love how we can change our neurology, and I love how, we can use therapeutics to augment. And I just turned into a huge science nerd, man. Like I submitted papers to the Journal of Addiction Medicine. I'm like on articles all the time. Like I treat, meth addiction with like, special therapeutics that I use, and, gambling and sex addictions and those sorts of things, which, I've been treating for years. And yeah, man, I just love the neurology behind it. I love knowing, hey, if we tweak this neurotransmitter and we add that, and then we do some social stuff out here, right, to really change the behavior, then we may have different signaling, So it just, if you find something you love, and I tell people this all the time, like the money will come. All that stuff comes with it, it's like I get paid to do what I love. I feel like I'm stealing every day. I feel like I'm stealing at work. I really do. I tell my wife this all the time. I feel like I'm ripping people off because like I get like, like I get paid money to go in and like talk addiction and like talk, healing. Like who gets to do that? Like so it's always been a dream of mine, and I love I love my people, I don't even want to call them patients, I like to have, it's almost like a friendship, without crossing the dual relationship. It's like I want medicine where, they can call me anytime, they can text me, they can, we can, I want to build like, like in the 40s where people go fishing with their doctor, like,
Yeah.
that model's gone. It's all track meet medicine now, and I hate seeing it. The people that, you see some of these hospitals, and I know we're stressed for people, but giving the patient 2 minutes for an initial evaluation, like not looking your patient in the eye, not remembering one thing about your patient, about their family, about like what they're into, about their struggle, it feels good to, say, hey, Mark, how are things going with your son, or just stuff like that. Know one thing about your patient. And it needs to change, because
Right.
addiction medicine and healing in general, it's not about they say it's 95% medications in psychiatry. I think it's 95% relationship. I really do. It's
Yeah.
95% relationship, right?
Yeah, it's building rapport, and I
Yeah.
mean, it's almost like people heal from within, and if they have a relationship with you, they're going to trust you, they're going to believe you, they're going to believe in you, they're going to take your suggestions. And speaking to earlier, you said that you feel like you're stealing from people, and it's like we've learned in the 12-step rooms. It's you're being of service, you're making a contribution, you're bringing value, which that leads to fulfillment, which is really what we're after, is fulfillment.
Hold on, I got a story. Can I tell you a story?
Absolutely.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna bring up the treatment center name, but so I was on a Facebook group that we have for addicts in Arizona, and I was posting my services for free. Just I was just trying to help some people out,
Yeah.
and I got a call from a treatment center, and they wanted to talk to me. And I was like, all right. And I went there, and they're like, we have to have you. They're like, we have to have you. And I was like, just, blown away. I'm like, seriously, this is how God works? Like, I'm trying to, like help some people on Facebook, and like I get pulled over here and, offered an amazing opportunity to pretty much run an addiction program. Like that's the juice of this program. That's the juice. Whenever you're doing, the right thing, it seems like you're strategically placed in positions of success. And it's, the meeting you didn't want to go to, the thing you didn't want to do, the, person you didn't want to, you didn't want to spend some extra time with, those are the times where the dividends are reaped.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me about the urge theory of addiction.
Yeah. So, and I just gave a lecture on this a little while ago. So essentially it's almost like addiction turns into an obsessive compulsive type disorder. Right. So, I always start with the, you can see behind me here. Essentially we have, 3 primal needs. Okay. As human beings and most mammals. Okay. Sex and reproduction, our species will die out, right? Food and water, or will die. And then nurture, right? Nurture. So we nurture our young. We have to teach them. If we cut a baby from an umbilical cord, they're not gonna make it, right? So there's that, those 3, programs that we're born with, and they're very high salient things. So they're worth a lot to the body. We will die for those 3 things. We will die for our young, right? We will die for a mate. We will die for food and water. And essentially what happens is the use of drugs or alcohol covers some of those needs of nurture that we didn't get. So like for myself, okay, I'll use me as an example. I was alone a lot as a kid. Okay. I didn't get a lot of that social interaction. I felt anxious a lot, right? I found alcohol. Alcohol made me feel like I fit in. It filled that need of nurture, right? Feeling a part of the herd. So by filling that need of nurture through alcohol, my body says in that ventral tegmental area, hey, alcohol equals primal need. It's important, very important. You will die for this, right? So
yeah.
Essentially, with most substances, that's what's really going on. It's not, I didn't have an alcohol problem, I had an alcohol solution, right? The problem was I couldn't figure out what was the maladaptation, how to work on that, and ultimately not need alcohol to give me that missing need. So the urge theory is essentially we have an experience. It's assigned a value, right? Evaluation. That's what happens with every experience, good or bad. Yeah. The amygdala stores the information based on somatic senses coming in, right? Different pathways. Hey, this tastes good. This doesn't taste good. This is awesome. This is, this feels good. So the amygdala essentially gives it a score, all right, 10 dopamine, right? And then it's tucked away, it's saved. And then what happens is we have a thought, right? What happens when we have the thought is we actually pull from that saved sensory, right? That saved experience, and the body runs it through its limbic system and says, wow, that's a really good experience. That was a really good one. And basically you go into an obsessive compulsive type ritual to obtain that dopamine release, right? And the cycle goes on, right? On and on and on. And, it's interesting because I explain this a lot. We look at alcohol and we know we can get, mice dependent on alcohol. And at the end of the study, they're hooked up to functional MRI. And towards the end of the studies, you don't even have to put the alcohol into the cage anymore. You just put it outside and you see the same dopamine, brain just lighting up.
Right.
And that, that tells me, is it the alcohol, or is it the perception of the experience, the perception of well-being, the perception of inclusion, the perception of nurture, right? Is that what it is? That's probably what it is. Right. So it doesn't matter what it is that really, triggers that. It's a perception, right? It's a perception. That's why we give people naltrexone to block dopamine, and they drink. They don't get drunk. They're like, well, the euphoria is much lower because the euphoria is in the perception of well-being. That's the euphoria. It's the, that's the juice.
It's the I'm okay. It's the
I'm okay. And this makes me okay. And I need it because it's an innate need. It's a need of nurture, and I will die for this. I will die for this.
So how do you get over that? How do you get someone to get over that?
Yeah. First treatment. I mean, you got to be separated, first, right?
Yeah.
That's number one, is get into treatment, and I'm not saying like outpatient. If inpatient treatment is always where we should start, depending, but we need to rewire those neuronal pathways, right? They're etched in. They're never going away either. So the goal is to start rewiring, right? We rewire by understanding what we were missing, right? We start out with, hey, what didn't I get maybe as a kid? What didn't I, do as an adolescent? What need does this drinking do for me, right? Because drinking is not the problem. You take away the alcohol from an alcoholic, or drugs from a drug addict, they're 100 times more miserable, and if you don't replace it with something, like, you might as well drink, because you're going to be unhappy, right? It's about finding out what we're missing and what we're trying to cover up, and what's, what we didn't get, and finding a way to get that from within. Because we can put the money, the sex, you put everything you want into here, right? And it'll feel good for a little bit. Stuff will look good out here for a little bit, right? And then it looks like, all right, I need something else. Put it in, right? Sex, drugs, money. All right. The trick is we feel good here first. Then everything out here starts to look a little better, right? When we do it from within, we fill our cup from within, it pours out, right? And that doesn't go empty, right? Putting stuff in goes empty. Bleeding it out, that's where the magic happens. That's where your perspective changes. That's where your ideas change. That's where your, gratitude changes. And it's a much better place to live in.
So so you're saying they heal from the heart first, internally, before all the other stuff. So am I hearing you say that they need to replace that feeling, replace the drugs with something else? So what are the things that they can replace it with?
There's lots of, first the maladaptation needs to be addressed, and we address that through therapy, Tim. We know that, right? Through trauma therapy, so that we work on that. And then there's lots of healthy alternatives to get, some good dopamine and, some adrenaline. I mean, lots of people like to, exercise. They like to go travel. They like to climb the Grand Canyon. They like to, hang out with their significant other. There's so many things out there that we can get that physiologic dopamine push without moving into supra physiologic territory, then raising our set points, and then, nothing of in ourselves will really measure up to, what a drug was giving us. Right. So we're, I guess it's like the bar is becoming lowered because, we're not trying to hit it with a drug anymore. And it's a lot easier to find pleasure in the small things, like going to a meeting, picking up a chip, I don't know, going to a movie. I mean, there's so many little things. So yeah, I mean, we heal here and we replace it with things that are wholehearted, right? And things that are healthy, things that don't hurt other people, being of service, right? Those kind of things.
Asking my future self, hey, what are the things I should do? And I mean, I can, and that's what we do at Camelback Recovery, the sober living portion of it anyways, is teach people how to learn how to live.
There you go.
Because that's what has to happen, because everything has to change. New eating habits, new sleeping habits. They pray and meditate. They exercise. They hang out with new people, new friends. They become a different person. And the only way to transform is to completely change everything. And I mean, the joy I get today, I mean, like I go on a bike ride called Hour of Power, and it's every Tuesday and Thursday. It's at 5:30 in the morning. I've got to leave my house at 10 after 5. And I'll tell you what, that is like the most amazing thing is this bike ride through Paradise Valley. It's hard. I work my ass off. I'm with a bunch of people. There's some laughter. There's some fun. There's some really hard. I mean, I was on this ride this last Tuesday, and I mean, my eyes felt like they were going to pop out. I was riding so hard. I mean, it was crazy. And it's like, that's the high. That's the high. That's the rush. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be exercise or bike riding, but there's something like that or the equivalent of that. That's the drug. That's the solution. That's the, and then when I start to think about my, like you're saying, it's like the thought of it, like I start to think about the bike ride, I get excited,
Yeah.
and
Good
I think
recall.
about, yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Okay. So what is the developmental urge model of disorder?
So that goes in line with the with kind of the whole urge theory, is that that maladaptation, in younger ages. So,
Okay.
and it's like, it's not always our parents' fault, right? I mean, we transmit what we got. We can't help but to, and we can't help but to, we can't transmit something we don't got, and we can't help but to transmit what we do, right? So when our parents are raising us, oftentimes, they're bestowed a set of skills and it's bestowed on us, right? So if,
Well, that's like Jim Rohn said, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And
there you
you're
go.
raised by your parents. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's true. It's true. And like I was saying, there's so many, especially with technology these days. And here, take the screen. This will babysit you.
Yeah.
So there's so many factors that are evolving the way this is shaping up for people, and it's intriguing with technology and how that's going, and the influence. Those maladaptive patterns, to socialization, to just being able to function, as a part of a community, really leave you wondering, most of these people, what am I missing? What is wrong with me? It's like it's an inherent missing piece, right? Because like I said, we're born with those programs of nurture, right? But they didn't have iPads, in 500 AD, they didn't have, that kind of thing. It was usually the parents were very closely involved. They're very, or if they're not, something happens to the parents, the community picks them up, right? And we just don't see that anymore. It's, and that's why we're seeing this real rise in mental health crises during COVID. People are isolated. People are they're raising themselves. And we need to get uncomfortable, right? And we need to learn different habits and learn different skills. And that's what kind of the developmental thing is your upbringing really has a lot to do with how you end up. And you can go the opposite end too. I see people that grow up in very chaotic environments, then they're OCD as heck, because nothing was stable when I was a kid, so everything's going to be stable now. I see that with a lot of obsessive compulsive disorders. They probably grew up in chaos. We look at people that are love addicts, right? The relationship addicts. They probably grew up with a father that wasn't around, I see oftentimes, right? So they're gravitating towards something they didn't have. You're either gravitating towards something you didn't have or trying to get away from something you didn't like, and it's always a little bit of an overcompensation towards either way. And that's kind of where we find ourselves in trouble.
So when you say consciousness is a key driver of success, what does that mean? What do you mean?
Tim, you remember the first time you drank?
Kind of.
Okay. Do you remember the 6th time you drank?
Definitely not.
Okay. Right.
I remember I remember some. Yes, I do remember some of the times some of my first couple of times. I've got a couple of specifics. Yes.
Yeah. So usually the memories that we form, the first one is like the most important, right? The first one's that one that we usually use for compare and contrast purposes for the rest of our lives, right? Mm-hmm. If you get bit by a snake, you're probably going to walk by a snake and be like, whoa, right?
Yeah.
Because you learn that, right? And essentially, being in consciousness is, I'm not using a lot of that filter of fear and filter of worry and filter of inadequacy to run these thoughts through. Okay. It's more about operating in the here and now and doing the next right thing, right? Something that feels like it's from your heart. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I tell people when you're running stuff by that filter of fear, or you're running stuff by that filter of inadequacy, that's that's where we get so paralyzed that we don't move towards our dreams, right? We don't move towards our dreams. I tell people, if you're in consciousness, right? Hey, this is the next thing to do. Like you said, Tim, I'm going to do it and a way will work out. Here we go. Let's let's do it. So I think that, we look at the very successful people, the Musks, the Gates, these people, they seem very impulsive, but I don't think it's so much as impulsiveness rather than, they're very operative in the conscious. So they seem very impulsive, but they're just not running things through that emotional filter, all the time. So like, whoa, let's pull this over. Remember that bad thing that happened? I mean, there's good saying that, there is, but we do that too much. Like, we're never going to get anything done. We're never.
Yeah. We make decisions based upon our experiences, and an experience isn't a reason to not do something, but an experience definitely helps you make a decision.
Absolutely. And it's there, it's when we dread on it too long and like, well, last time I tried to start a business, it went horribly wrong. And, I don't think I can do it. It's like, all right, well, you know what? My heart's in it. I love what I do. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. I'm not afraid to fail. Let's go.
Yeah. All of the most successful people in the world, failure after failure after failure after failure. I have a little piece of artwork on my wall from Gaping Void. I would show it to you right now, but it says, the first time I saw this was at the Genius Network office. I mean, this is the story. Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I mean, and that's it. That's it right there.
Right?
You can't be afraid to fail.
No.
Because we're gonna fail. All of us fail. Just keep on moving forward. And if you fail, learn from it. Okay, get up and try again.
There you go. And I mean, if we didn't have failure, we wouldn't know what success is, or it wouldn't be worth talking about, right? Because it wouldn't be something special. It wouldn't be something, hard fought. There wouldn't be blood, sweat, and tears. There wouldn't be an emotional connection to what you achieved. It'd just be like, all right, I did that and it worked out every time,
Yeah. It's the work. It's the hard work that makes things worthwhile. It's doing Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim. It's hard. It takes a long time, and you go through lots of pain along the way, and I mean, really, it's just hard work. And it's the same thing as getting clean and sober. I mean, how much pain did you experience going to treatment 17 times?
Right, and then going, and not only that, just even coming out of it. When I first got sober, I was 23, I was like I was so paralyzed by all the life that I fucked up. And, how am I going to amount to anything, man? Like, I don't have a fucking driver's license. I don't have like a place to stay. I'm looking at this heap of, shit. And I'm like, how am I ever going to be anything, And it was scary. It was scary to look at, but it's like, I ended up in a little, me, my wife, and my two kids, we, down the road ended up in a 2-bedroom apartment, on Northern and like 19th Avenue. We shared a 96 Accord with a bumper hanging off the front, and dude, but we were happy, like it was like, we were happy. We didn't care, like, yeah, we were shopping at Food City, we didn't care, it was just like, hey, we're sober, like our family's together, like we're happy. And it's just like every time that I would put all into the, my endeavors and keep going to meetings and doing the right thing, it's like God gave me a little bit more. He's like, hey, here's a little bit more. Hey, here's a little bit more. Hey, here's a little bit more. And I'm careful to recognize, it's not about, what I get. It's all about, what can I give back? That's where they say, what is it called? It's you got to give it away to get it, right? It's like so cliche, dude, but it's true.
Yeah, it is, but it's true. You've got to give it away if you want to keep it, and that's how we get to fulfillment. We used to think that it's like we lie, cheat, and steal to get the things that we want because we want the bigger house, the fancy car, the fancy diamond ring, all of those things, because we think that leads to fulfillment, which really it doesn't. It leads to emptiness and guilt and shame, which then causes us to go back out and drink and use.
Yeah.
So the pathway to happiness and freedom is to give it away.
Give it away and like help out newcomers. Like, I don't know how many times, like just doing stupid stuff that's like, that I would have like loved, like buy a bike at Walmart and go, drop it off at a meeting hall. Me and my wife do stuff like that all the time. It feels so good, or like pay for the people behind you at Starbucks. Like I could never do that like 10 years ago, ever.
Right.
How much the car behind me? $3. Okay, car behind that 20. Okay, let's just do the first car.
Right.
That feels good, man. And I love, scholarshiping people, because I ended on a scholarship. Someone took a flyer on me, so that's like I'm very like big on, like we gotta help we gotta give it back like that too sometimes. Like I take on free clients. I know you do too at times, and that's where I really find the most joy. I really do, giving it away.
What does it take to rewire pathways?
It takes traveling it. So I always talk about rewiring neuronal pathways. Like you got the I-10 and you got the little access road next to it. Okay. The little access road's the one you build in treatment. Okay. It's not well traveled. It's got potholes. Yeah. Nobody wants to keep up on it. Right. That's the access road. Okay. The more we travel it, the more that access road starts to turn into your 5-lane. Right. And then hopefully by the time you're done, the access road's on the other side. And that's the old one. Okay. That's the lie, cheat, and steal one, right? It's always there. Yeah. It's always there, right? It's like a cucumber becomes a pickle, never be a cucumber again, right? That road is there. Okay. So what happens, especially with alcohol, is your body remembers. Once you take a drink again, your body knows, hey, we know how to re-regulate, right? Dump off these neurotransmitters. We upregulate these. And that's why we see people that binge drink. It's actually the most dangerous type of drinking, right? Because your body knows right away, dump off all these neurotransmitters, and you're right back where you were. So, and then you got to tilt it a little more. So we look at binge drinking and, those sort of things. Your body really remembers how to carve out that road quick,
Wow. I love that analogy of the little side road. You're in treatment, you're building the little side road. And really the purpose of IOP, PHP, sober living is because it's like you've got that first year, which is the most crucial year. That first year, you're putting all of your energy into building this road and making this road wider so that it becomes a freeway. You got the year to do it. Do everything you can. Get as many people on board, as much support, as much accountability, as much therapy, treatment, group, IOP, everything you possibly can do to build that pathway so that it's a freeway, and the old way of thinking becomes the little side street.
Yeah, and I use that analogy a lot when people, especially when they don't, they're not going to groups or they're missing things. I'll point out at a campus I work at. I'll be like, hey, I'll point at a vending machine and I'll be like, how much are those sodas? And they know how much they are. They all drink the sodas. They're $1. And I'm like, I pull out some change out of my pocket. I'm like, I got 99 cents. You think I can get a soda? And they're like, no. I was like, what will happen if I put it in there? They're like, you won't get any soda. And I'm like, so if I don't put it all in, I don't get a soda, right? And they're like, and then they look at me for a second. They're like, and I'm like, that's this treatment experience. If you want the recovery in the book or that you see in other people, you got to put in your full dollar. You can't get the full reward without putting in full effort. All right. And you're not going to get the full benefits and reward of sobriety if you're half-assing it, or you're putting in 99 cents. Okay. You're going to end up sodaless. Okay. That's going to happen.
Yeah. Half measures availed us nothing, right?
There you go. Yep. Exactly. Yep.
So what separates your treatment approaches from other treatment approaches?
Okay. So the DSM, man. Okay. Like it's a cool book for billing. Okay. I really look at traits. Okay. I look at traits, and, Bessel van der Kolk and others will say the same thing. We want to look at traits. So I don't want to treat an umbrella diagnoses with an umbrella, therapeutic. If someone's got depression, the algorithm says, hey, throw an SSRI at them, but is that what's going on? Is it a tired depression? Is it is it a walking depression? So I really want to know, do I need to up some norepinephrine, some dopamine? Do I need to tickle this, tickle that? So I really try to use the neurobiologic approaches and pharmacologic approaches to actually treat the traits I see rather than treating an umbrella of traits, right? So, I may use something that may not be for that specific umbrella, but it targets a lot of the traits under the umbrella, right? More traits than it does targeting, under the umbrella in which it's supposed to be. So I really try to look at that when I'm doing a diagnostic interview. I look at the traits, okay? I don't look at the diagnoses. They're good for billing. I know how to, diagnose, how to DSM, but, I want to know, what can I do to change these traits that this client, feels is kind of holding them back. And also I tell them, medication is not a fix. This is to augment, right? A SSRI, it's meant to cause serotonin to hang out in the synapse a little longer without getting pulled back up, right? So the body can say, hey, I think we need to make some more, this other one hasn't came back, so we start making more serotonin, right? And what you want to do is you want to end up pulling, the med out, and you're making your own again. I mean, so
Right.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the whole goal. The whole goal is we augment, right? And then our body knows what to do. It knows what to do.
Yeah, that makes me think of I take thyroid medication. And I had a doctor that said, your thyroid's not functioning at 100%. You need, and I'm going to put you on thyroid medication. And sure enough, in 90 days, my thyroid was, I was feeling great. Because I was a little tired. I needed more sleep. I was fatigued. My adrenals were bothering me, and my adrenals were shot. And then, I'm still taking the thyroid medication. Here I am a year later, I'm still taking it. And I've got another doctor that I'm seeing now, and he's more of a naturopathic doctor. And he's like, you shouldn't still be on this thyroid medication. Like, thyroid medication it's temporary. We want your thyroid to start functioning. And so we want to start. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to reduce this. I'm going to put you on this because we want your thyroid to start functioning so that you don't have to rely on this crutch. It's just like when you put it on a cast. You put it on a cast, what happens to your arm? The muscle goes away. It shrinks. Use it or lose it, basically. And so that's kind of the same thing. And that's kind of what I'm hearing you say as well about SSRIs and that type of thing.
Yeah, and there's so many therapeutics out there that are not used and are misunderstood. We look at medicated assisted treatment. All that stuff is great with the ultimate goal of getting off them. That's the ultimate goal, but obviously every case is different, and anything we can do to improve the quality of life for somebody, that that's what this is all about. I know recovery is big time. We want abstinence. That's absolutely what we want, as clinicians and mental health advocates. We want people to improve their quality of life, so I can't not treat someone because they're not going to stop drinking. That's not how it works. My goal is to give them everything they can to improve their quality of life, everything I can. Take away all the external things and all the things we're told and all the things that, we learn in AA, and I'll tell them, it's probably best to be, abstinent, and here's the risks, but, I want people's lives to get better, and if that involves medications, okay.
Yeah. And speaking of medication assisted treatment, you were on Suboxone yourself. So tell me, like, what's your opinion, and tell me kind of your experience with it for yourself.
Okay. Yeah. So oftentimes with using high doses of opioids, your endogenous system really shuts down. Okay. So what happens is you're getting huge dopamine spikes from, fentanyl, heroin, and your body says, hey, I can't do anything about what's coming in. Okay. Tim's putting in a bunch of dope. I don't know what to do. What do I do? What your body does is actually it starts dumping off binding sites. So it starts dumping off binding sites, right? So you're dumping off binding sites. You're getting huge doses of narcotics in you. What happens when we take those out? You're left with no binding sites and essentially none of your own dopamine, right? Because You're not making it. Hanging out with your kid doesn't compare to a blast of methamphetamine. You know, I mean, let's just be honest with you. So we have this set point up here of feeling good. There's your set point now. We're making this much dopamine, right? So we went from here 0 to we're making a little bit, right? Here is, you know, hanging out with your wife and kids. What Suboxone does is it causes a physiologic spike in dopamine. So it brings the floor to about here. So you only have to move down to about here to start getting some relief. Okay. Instead of sometimes people, they can't make it down to there. You know, they can't, you know, it's the longer you're using, the further this gets away. Right. So what it does is it causes the body to make a little bit, nothing super physiologic. The body can only hold 24 milligrams of buprenorphine. Doesn't matter if you take 1,000,000 milligrams, the rest is getting peed and pooped out. So it's physiologic. So what I do is for some people, I like to, you know, raise the floor up so they start to experience some joy a little quicker. And then sometimes I'll give an injectable buprenorphine, which lasts, you know, almost 8 months. And I'll let the buprenorphine slowly exit the body as the endogenous system fires up, right? And that's where we get the synergy, right? So the Suboxone's leaving the body and the system's firing up on its own. We get that beautiful little synergistic kind of crossing of paths there.
How long did that take for you before you were able to wean on? Like, how long were you on Suboxone, and what did that taper look like?
So I was on Suboxone for 9 months, and my taper was like 3 months. And I tell people, you know, it's not a race to get off it. You know, you can do this over 3-4 months. You can do it over 5 months. No one cares, you know, just, you know, whatever feels right. And people ask me when do I do it? And I'm always, you know, well, let's look around. What has changed? You know, are you stably employed? Are you able to, you know, feed yourself, house yourself? You know, I look at that and then I'm like, well, you know, maybe it's a time to give it a shot. You can always, you know, go back on it. Let's see how you feel, you know? So I would say there is no magic number, because some people, even getting a roof over their head is like, you know, that's like a huge, you know, take years for some people. Some people, their lives get, you know, they get repaired pretty quick, you know, so that's someone that I would take off quicker. So I don't think there's a magic answer, but I strive for between 12 and 18 months. That's what I strive for.
So I'm hearing you say it's case by case, and really somebody needs to make sure that they're connected to a good doctor that actually listens to them, pays attention to them, and is aware, so that the doctor spends more than 2 minutes with them, so you can actually make a good decision and help them make a good decision.
Absolutely. We're not doing anyone any favors by guessing, right? I mean, and it's very easy to ask the question, you know, did you get a job? You get a house? You know, you know, you paying your rent? You living with roommates? I mean, they're very simple questions. You know, we can get a lot of data, you know. All right, well, he's stably employed. He's paying his bills. You know, he's got his driver's license. Do you got insurance? You know, that's a big deal, you know, liability or full coverage, you know. So just getting the data points to know, okay, well, this person looks, you know, they're acclimated, they're plugged in, you know, let's give it a shot. Hey, how do you feel about reducing the dose a little bit? You know, let's see how you feel. All right. How do you feel about reducing the dose again? All right. How do you feel about reducing the dose again? Right. And then, you know, you kind of let them wobbling on their bicycle, right? And you just kind of let them go.
Now, there's some people think that they need to be on Suboxone forever. Are there cases of people where in your opinion, in your experience, where people need to be on Suboxone forever?
Yes. So my opinion is, as a clinician, I'm more worried about the quality of life. I'm not so much worried about abstinence. Abstinence is great. You know, that's the gold standard. Yeah. But if it's going to keep a woman from losing her kids to CPS, or, you know, her from, you know, prostituting, and, you know, or a man from robbing somebody at gunpoint, or doing, you know, driving under the influence of fentanyl, I am much more in the school of, well, you know what, let's give them the best quality of life we can, you know, for them, and then people, and kind of do damage control for the people around them. Right. Yeah. And then be like, all right, well, you know, you sink or swim when they got like 2 little kids there, or, you know, they're out, you know, meeting somebody at the corner. So I take that into consideration. You know, some people, it's, you know, their bottom is maybe lower, and there's only so far they're willing to climb, and we got to meet them where they're at. Honestly, like I'll have high expectations. You know, like I want you to get here, but you know, I'll meet you where you're at, and I'll go as far as you're willing to go.
Is there a question you wanted me to ask you today that I didn't ask?
No.
Where can people find you? How can people find you?
There's a couple different ways you can find me. You can go to my website, nextsteprecoveryaz.com. You can look me up on TikTok Addiction Doc. And then also you can find me on my LinkedIn. And yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, that does it for our time with Dr. Robbie Westerman. If you learned something, or if you heard something that resonates with you, please share in the comment section of YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, or wherever you're listening. And every comment counts, and what you share could resonate with someone else that is struggling and potentially save their life. So go ahead, share the one thing that resonated with you in the reviews section of iTunes, or comment on YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever you're listening. It'll just take 60 seconds out of your day, but what you share could not only save you, but it could also save someone's life. And that does it. I'm Tim Westbrook. I hope that our paths cross again. And Robbie, I appreciate you very much. Thank you so much. I enjoyed spending time with you today. And that does it for today.